this person literally thinks I'm sat on a different horse.
You cannot just have any old saddle. You can't. The reality is, if you truly let your horse lead you, you will have the best, most wonderful experiences.
Up until about, I want to say 6 months ago, I don't want to say it.
I don't love that part of me that's ended up in that place.
I want people to absolutely know that I'm an Olympian.
This season is brought to you by the Harry Hall One Club. Hello everybody, welcome back. Just Rhi and I today, which I'm really looking forward to actually. We haven't had a proper catch up in ages this season, have we?
No, it's great. But you know what? Miri and I, here's a bit of a behind the scenes. So Miri and I interview a lot of people at the forefront of welfare and technology. And quite often these people do not want to live their lives online. They are not super techie. They live in remote parts of the UK, Ireland, Scotland, etc. And what often happens is that Miri and I will end up on here kind of waiting for a guest, and then the guest might have to restart their laptop or move to a different room for signal or whatever. And we just chat. We could chat for hours, just hours.
We have had a particularly bad run of it, haven't we? We've had one guest who I really hope will meet the podcast one day, because I think that their story is super interesting. But one call, they just turned up on they thought it was a different day. Next one they tried, the signal was absolutely non-existent, to the point that it would have been a complete non-starter. And then the next time, because we've recorded this remotely obviously, the next time again they got the wrong hour, so then we couldn't do it again. And then when they did come, the signal was it was disastrous. So yeah, we often do end up chatting about things behind the scenes and thinking that would have probably been an interesting conversation for people to listen to. So anyway, here we are having one of those conversations minus a guest, which is nice. Midway point of the season. Had some fascinating conversations so far. I felt like that conversation with Connie last week was literally so heartfelt and truthful, and what often a lot of people aren't saying, which I think is such an important thing. And it's such a difficult, nuanced thing in the horse world, because you get struck down for talking about negative, I'm doing in air quotes, negative reinforcement. And one of the things I think I said, I don't know if I said it on the podcast or off it, but I think that negative reinforcement shouldn't be called negative reinforcement. I think it should be called reductive reinforcement, I think I called it, or something. I used that. Yeah, where you remove something. So you asking your horse to go from walk to trot, you put your leg on, you then take the pressure off. That's negative reinforcement. That's the reality of it. But negative has such a bad connotation to it that it really creates a stigma. And what Connie was talking about felt so validating. If you haven't listened, please do go back and have a listen, because it is an absolutely, I think, a very important conversation for anyone who rides a horse to listen to, really.
It was a good one. And she also shared a reel on her Instagram, Connie Holfox. We're also, if you look for this Equestrian Life pod on Instagram, you'll find ours, and we've tagged her so you can find her that way. But she shared this idea of blending positive and negative reinforcement, and how she was okay with that. And it felt really, I feel like this season we've gotten much closer to being able to have conversations that do run a spectrum a little bit and are able to move a little closer to the edges without it feeling super uncomfortable. Because I think it's really, we've always said we didn't want to be purist on anything. And that conversation, I think, felt, and with Rochelle, actually, King Andrews, the dressage rider, they both have felt like they've tried to be really balanced in their approaches, and it was good. Yeah.
Really, absolutely. And I think the reality of it all is that it is a swinging, sliding scale, and you do have to have a level of, I'm going to say it, compliance from a horse to compete at a good level. They have to say yes to things and choose to be there. And sometimes I think, there is a level of clarity that is needed from a trainer to be able to get to that point and, to use a aid more strongly or clearly. And I think these both people were very good at explaining that and getting to a point where that felt really approachable and realistic for the everyday rider.
For me, it was there was a zooming out of context, which was you can put pressure on the horse in this scenario, like when you're in the arena and you're asking a question and you're like, no, I really want you to do this, because you know that when you walked into the stable with the bridle, you didn't get adverse signals from the horse that they weren't happy. You didn't get behavioural signals when you were bringing them in from the field. You know that you've put training in place so that the horse feels safe and is able to answer the question. So I think it's like these things only work in context, which was cool and a nice, I think it was helpful. If I suddenly sound louder, I'm really sorry. I realised 5 minutes into that recording that my mic wasn't coming through the speakers. So our producer will have done a wonderful job trying to sync those audios. But if it suddenly sounds different, I'm so sorry.
I love it. Such amateur hour today. What's going on? We are the worst.
So what's been going on? I have some updates, but you have updates too. Do you want to go first?
I'm going to tell you all a funny story.
Okay, go on.
Start us off. So I fell off Blondie for the first time the other day.
Why do you say it like that?
So I set the scene. I just had been riding Blondie and I've got a saddle now, which is super cool. And I'm riding around, I'm having a lovely time. And I was wearing my jumper tied around my waist because it was too hot to wear my jumper and it has pockets. So I had my phone in one pocket and then I had snacks for her in the other pocket. And we've been doing some positive reinforcement and all this fun stuff. Anyway, I was then sat there. I'd been like walk, trot, cantering around, having a lovely time. I'm just sat on her. And Lucy, who works for me, is doing some work with one of the young horses. And I was coaching her along and had taken a little bit of video actually for my online platform because she's got loading difficulties. So we were going through everything. Anyway, so I've been sat there for a minute and then I not really thinking about what I'm doing. So instead of swinging my right leg over the back of the saddle, I then swing my right leg over the front of the saddle. Now, I get off like that all the time. Like, that's perfectly normal. Yeah, totally normal thing. Oh, no, mate, that's not the story. If only. Okay. So
I'm just trying to think of all the things that Blondie would be triggered by because she's quite specific about what she wants.
This is not a Blondie problem. This is natural selection nearly taking place, right? Oh. Yeah. So I swing my right leg over the front of the saddle, and in doing so, as I go to slide down the side of Blondie, I suddenly stop sliding down because my jumper has become latched onto the cantle of my saddle, and I am just suspended in the air. And because I ride an Equitex and I hadn't undone my girth, my saddle is not going nowhere. Like, it is there. And I'm just hanging by my waist. My jumper has slid up my body, up to my boobs. So I've suddenly got like this cute little boob lift going on. And Blondie's just kind of slow panicking away from me, walking quite fast in the opposite direction to me because I'm just hanging off the side of her like some sort of limp balloon. Oh my God, it was so bad. Anyway, she like twizzled round a bit and I just like flopped onto the ground. And in that time, like, my life flashed before my eyes because I was thinking she could really react badly here. Like, she could kick me, she could respond, like I could touch her leg that she doesn't really like. Thank goodness she just was like, what are you doing, you absolute lump of idiocy? And then I fell on the floor and it was actually fine. I hit the floor quite hard, like a bit of a thump, like, and then I just sat there on the ground for a minute.
But you were in the arena?
Oh yeah, I was in the arena. Yeah, thankfully we were still in the school. Thankfully I hadn't got off on the yard in this moment because that could have been a lot worse. But and you just think, God, what a foolish way to get hurt. Like, of all the ways for that sort of thing to happen, like to get hurt because of a horse, and it's because I tied my jumper around my waist. So be careful, kids. It's wild out there. I'm just thankful that Blondie didn't actually lose her marbles with me because that could have been really bad. So yeah, thank goodness for Blondie's regulation these days because I think it saved me. Anyway, other than that, yeah. that was what I wanted to tell you.
The image of you like it's almost like a sling on your jumper is quite hilarious. And also I kind of love Blondie for this because, like, yes, she's very particular. Yes, she can be challenging. But in moments like that, she is just like why are you behaving like a donkey? Like, can you not? Like, do you know what I mean? She's so sweet.
100%.
I can just imagine her being like, this doesn't feel like step one, step two, step three of some training. I just don't know what you want me to do here. Like, can we just,
So
it feels like
funny.
you've skipped some steps.
Literally, like, is this a new thing we're trying out? Like, why are you dangling from the side of me? Is this, should I know what to do in this moment? No, Blondie, you shouldn't know what to do because I am, in fact, not performing human behaviors. I have lost the human brain and things have fallen apart. I actually watched a video the other day that I posted ages ago when I used to do those voiceovers of her. Do you
Oh,
remember
yeah.
that?
Oh,
On,
with Blondie, like her voice. Her
yeah,
voice.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember posting, I saw this one and it came up on my TikTok as like on this day. And it was of Blondie and I and Zora going hacking. And there was this bit in it when it was like, so I did actually stop a few times on this hack and just stare at things. But my human didn't share those moments because she's got an ego and she only likes to show you the good bits. And obviously Blondie didn't actually say that. I said that, but it's so true. Like if you see people not posting their shit moments on Instagram, it's because their ego took over and they don't want to show you. So there you go. That made me laugh.
100%.
Oh, but
Hundred
you've had a slightly more successful equestrian time. Oh my God, the one last thing with this story,
Go
there
on.
was a client was there. A client watched this happen. This lovely, lovely lady, Abby, who's got her young horse with us for the time being, who's just come for some groundwork training. And I literally was sitting there on the floor with Blondie looking down at me going, you know, like they do when they snort at you on the floor. And I just put my hand up and I was like, hi, Abby, just your professional horse trainer here reporting for duty from the surface of the arena. She was like, I saw all of that. And I thought, fantastic, of course you did. That makes me look even more stupid than I feel. So there we go. Great. I'm going to stand up now and we're going to go and train your young horse. How do you feel about that?
Love that.
Terrible.
Fabulous.
Terrible. Oh, anyway, you've had a much more successful time
Hilarious.
recently, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, not as funny, but very fun for me. So we have not competed externally for like months. So you might remember if you've listened to the podcast for a while that there was a point in the start of the year where I was having a bit of trouble every time, and it was every time I went out competing and did a dressage test, Harley would spook in a way that was like really disruptive to the test. So he would jump sideways and then rear up. He would jump backwards and then run backwards and then stop, or like, you know, stuff like that in a test, and we'd have to restart. And so I kind of went back to the drawing board and was like, okay, what can I do here to make this better? So we haven't competed in a while away from home. Anyway, I took him to this little unaffiliated event and I was going to do an intro and a prelim, and we'd been to dressage camp the like few days before. And one thing that I'd been working on, which to be fair, people have said to me for a long time, but I haven't been able, now that we're in the new saddle, it's made a huge difference in my position and his ability to move his shoulders, which means that when I ask him questions, he can do it. But basically, if you have a horse that's a little bit looky and tends to move off the line and that you've put them on and stuff, we've been doing lots of spiraling in, spiraling out on a circle. So moving his rib cage, moving him across, getting a bit of lateral work in that makes him a lot easier to then have a conversation with when something difficult comes up. So anyway, I went to this competition being like, all I want to do today is see if doing lateral work in the warm-up has a meaningful impact on spookiness in the test. And I have to tell you, when I walked up to the arena that it was going to be in, it was a small indoor arena, quite dark, and the letters were at the edge, basically. So you're just right at the edge of this arena. There's a couple of things in a couple of corners. The judge is at the entrance, and I was like, I really don't want to do a prelim in here. Like, I really don't want to. But then I was like, you know, did my mindset training. I was like, oh, you're nervous. That's interesting. Why do you think that is? And brought myself back to being like, your only job today is to test out the lateral work. That is literally it. So anyway, had a lovely warm up, did a lovely intro test. And as I came out, the judge was like, I've met you before. And I was like, have you? And I kind of didn't register. And she was like, yeah, I taught you at this venue. And I was like, I don't recognise the name of that venue. I was like, you sure it was me? She was like, yeah, but I think you were on a different horse. Like, he was really anxious. And I was like, I mean, maybe my skewbald that I had before Harley. She was like, no, it was like last year, but it wasn't this horse. He was like really anxious. And I was like, it was probably this horse. Like, this is the only one I've got. Anyway, as I was leaving, I like suddenly came to me as I was driving the lorry away. She has taught me before, and it was about a year ago, and it was a really difficult lesson, and I felt not great after. Harley was quite spooky. We'd had a very difficult drive getting there. It was raining and horrible, and I just thought, wow. I was like, this person literally thinks I'm sat on a different horse because we look so different. Like, that is crazy. And it's the best intro score I've ever had on him away from home.
Wow.
So
this person is a coach and a judge, is that right?
yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. So they're a dressage rider themselves, and they obviously do a bit of judging, bit of coaching, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, he was just great. Like, he had a real look at something as I was walking around this arena, and I thought, oh no. And then I was like, it's okay, just stick to the system, do what you need to do. And he was great. The prelim was great. The canter was a little bit wild, I'll be honest, but it's fine, because that was where we are right now. And he's just, I was very happy.
Oh, that's really cool. That's lovely.
That's cool.
And nice to, when you feel things start to click into place. But one of the things that always comes up for me in this moment is, like, you've done a lot of different things to get to this point. I think that's so important to remember. Like, it's not just that you had some different training. You changed the saddle. You've adapted the way you go hacking. You're introducing more, I don't know, doing things from the ground maybe to help his confidence. And all of those things are starting to add together. And I think that's one of the things that sometimes gets overlooked, is actually it's this cumulative effect of all of these different things that makes such an enormous difference. You can't just feed your horse a supplement and fix the problem. You can't just, do a different bit of training. I think this is, really a really important thing to, do.
I mean, I will say, and I did get a small discount on these saddles, but I paid for them as a customer. I will say these saddles have literally changed my life. Like,
we've been talking a lot about the summer and the heat in this season of the podcast. And although we love the summer because it's nice to be outside with our horses when it's warm and sunny, it doesn't mean that it comes without risks. Warmer weather can mean dry, hard ground and colic triggers like dehydration. These things could impact your horse at any time. This is why having the right cover in place makes all the difference, especially to your stress levels. That is why Harry Hall One Club offers vet fee cover you can rely on. From just £8.40 per month, it covers you for accidental external visible injury. That's injuries from accidents like cuts and wounds, rather than illness, and there is no upper age limit or vetting required. With transparent pricing, you pay the same as everyone else, and they truly believe that every horse matters, so the prices are the same for every horse. They don't ask you to choose your favourite horse if you own more than one, and you can cover multiple horses with no extra premium and share your vet fee cover value across all of them. And because everybody has different needs, you also have the flexibility to add optional cover like colic surgery, disposal, mortality, theft and straying. It is all part of the Harry Hall One Club approach, giving you practical, straightforward cover that works for the real equestrian life. Now, most of us can begrudge paying out for insurance each month because it sometimes feels like it doesn't offer much value unless you actually need to make a claim, but this is where Harry Hall One Club is refreshingly different. It's the go-to equestrian membership that combines insurance and money-saving perks together in one simple package from as little as £5.75 per month. To get cover, you simply sign up as a One Club member. This gives you public liability, personal accident and equine legal expenses cover as standard. When you join, you get perks included such as a legal helpline, 24/7 counselling service, free delivery, returns and exclusive discounts on harryhall.com, partner offers and event tickets. It helps you ensure you're getting your money's worth all year round, even if you never need to claim. So you could get all of that plus vet fee cover from as little as £14.15 per month. Members trust Harry Hall too, with thousands of excellent reviews and a reputation built since 1891, with a track record of paying over 99% of valid claims within 14 days and over 95% of their reviewers recommending Harry Hall. Plus, you'll always get friendly, Yorkshire-based support when you need it. So you can feel confident if something does go wrong, you'll be supported when it matters most. You can take their 2-minute quiz via the link in the show notes and it'll help you find out which membership level might be fit for you. Plus, when you join and get cover, you'll receive a £10 gift voucher to spend at harryhall.com. And if it's not for you, you can cancel within 14 days. No stress. Join the One Club and get cover today. Back to the podcast.
when I think about all the coins of all the different things, like the food, the training, the this, the that, the saddle kind of took me from like a 6 to an 11, because the way I sit in that dressage saddle, and it's so annoying because you know when you know that something's not quite right, but you just think it's you. You're like, oh, maybe I'm just not good enough. Maybe he's just this. Changing that saddle, I can sit in the right place. I feel like I'm out of the way of his shoulders. And when my coach, who hasn't seen me riding it before, she taught me, my dressage coach on the weekend, she was like, I was like, oh my God, he feels incredible. Like he was so up and he felt so fluid and it was wonderful. And she was like, the crazy thing is, Rhi, because I think I said, oh, if I get this at home on my own, I'll cry. And she was like, the thing is, we're not doing anything that crazy here. She was like, we're asking the same questions we were trying to ask him last year, but he couldn't move his body in the way that allowed him to answer. She was like, now he's in a saddle where he can move his shoulders and he's got the room, he can suddenly answer the questions. And I was like, I just thought, and she said it's been a real light bulb moment for me, seeing the change in your riding, about how important it is that the saddle fits the rider and not just the horse.
Yeah.
Because that saddle had a few modifications. They changed the cantle, they made room for, I've got quite a long thigh, they moved things around to allow room for that, and like it, yeah, it's just made a huge difference. It really has.
I think saddle fit, especially for horses' behaviour, like of course like you're talking about, I'm not denying that it's important for the rider. I think that saddle fit is one of the things I have to look at, not the most, but is a huge part of having a ridden horse. You cannot just have any old saddle. You can't, and I think it's so hard. You see top riders riding in, they'll often have one saddle that works for multiple horses, and I can't believe that is happening unless you have horses who are the carbon copy of each other. It's quite rare that you get a saddle that works for multiple horses, and it's one of the biggest things in terms of behavior. Just having a tree that fits the horse's skeletal system is so valuable. And I didn't really know about this until I met Mandy, who is the person who has also fitted Rhi's saddles.
Yeah.
And she's like the oracle, and it's a really hard thing because sometimes she has to tell you that your saddle doesn't fit. And I think that's a really hard thing to do as a professional, to say to somebody essentially, this is wrong. And I know you've asked me to come here with my opinion, but Mandy and I have spoken about it a lot. And sometimes people don't want to hear that. People want to hear that everything's fine and that they can carry on. And sometimes I think in the saddle fit world, you can get saddlers who are people pleasers. And I've had it a lot. They're like, yeah, it's okay. And it is okay. You would say that it fits in air quotes, but it doesn't fit the actual skeleton of the horse or the skeleton of the person. And that's a complicated dance, because then people take that personally almost.
Well, it's funny you say that, actually, because my coach, Melissa, my dressage coach, she did say, after I finished my session, we were just chatting, and she was like, saddlers, I think they get so used to having to just work with what's in front of them and like add a shim or add a thing or move a thing around, a bit like vets, like you said about vets who have owners that don't necessarily want to not ride. And she said, I think it's kind of a similar thing because, I'm not unaware. My saddles were very expensive, and I'm really lucky that I have a really well-paying job. And even I was a bit like, ooh, this is a lot of money. And, a lot of people couldn't afford to do that, especially not with the bespoke modifications and things that I had. But I think, and I think that's why saddlers get stuck being like trying to fix what's in front of them. And I think sometimes, I spent so much money on my saddle before, just having it refitted, reflocked, And the reality is, because the tree, I think, was just not right. You can wiggle it around all you want, but it doesn't fit. So, yeah.
Literally. And it is really difficult, but I think it's one of these things that we have to prepare ourselves for. If you want to have a ridden horse, you've got to prepare yourself, for the horse is going to change shape, and on purpose. If your saddle fits, right, and this is the thing, if your saddle fits your horse, I would hope it would enable your horse to develop more. Now, every horse around the world will always have space for improvement, strength, no matter whether they're at Grand Prix or at prelim. And one of the things that is important to acknowledge is we want this to happen. And I had an interesting situation recently where a client bought a horse and the horse was really damaged by the previous saddle, like damaged to the point where you thought, and it was a French branded saddle that was previously ridden in. There were lots of other things going on. Anyway, they bought this horse and they had Mandy fit the saddle. And the saddle worked for a period of time. And then it got to the point where the horse had changed shape so much that they needed to sell that saddle and buy a new one, basically, or buy a second-hand one, whatever the solution was, but a different saddle. And there was this real, like, the first saddle worked for maybe 2 years until the horse had really changed shape enough. But then essentially it's quite a new saddle still, 2 years old. Saddles last a very long time. Leather saddles should essentially last you the lifetime of your horse. But the reality is this horse was really damaged in the first place. So that change had to take place. And that saddle that it had enabled that. But then the client was like, I thought this saddle was adjustable. I don't want to buy a new one. But the reality was, is it had been adjusted through those 2 years to the maximum that it could be adjusted, and then the horse had changed shape. But that was really hard, and it was a real, and it was really difficult because I had to really be there to explain this process to the client, who was like, I don't really understand. And it is a really hard thing to wrap your head around. But the reality is, if you're dealing with atrophy or a horse that has had something, to its something has happened to its detriment, you are looking at healing the problem and then moving on from that. And that is that is something to be taken into consideration, speaking candidly with your saddler and saying, I understand that this might not be long, our forever piece of equipment. What do we do in the event that I need to change it? And then they can say to you, well, actually, we can trade it in, we will be able to do this, you'll likely lose this much money. But have that conversation, let that be a transparent thing, because otherwise you are putting your professional in a very, very hard place.
Yeah.
And as a professional who trains horses for people, I find this is really hard. Like, I have young horses that come in for training, and I do come up against the issue of, I think it's time for that horse to stop being trained at that point, right? You get to a certain point, the horse learns a certain amount, and I would like to be able to turn around to the owner and say, I think this is the good moment to stop training, for the horse to have a fortnight of no training, just being in the field, coming in, being groomed, and then we proceed again. But that's a really complicated thing to do, because how do I factor that into the price? Can my business afford for them suddenly to drop down and not be paying for the training? And it's something I think about all the time, and it's something I think, maybe that's something I should try and work out a way to have in my contract as such. Because there are times when I really feel like that. And there are times also when the horse has been with us for a period of time, got to a really good place. And then I think, actually, this horse could do with having a holiday. But it's time for that horse to then go home. And then you're thinking, well, then how do I pass that on to the owner? And it's really complicated, because the reality is, if you are really, really led by the horse at the absolute, and that is the only thing you are led by, training horses looks very different.
This is where it's like business plans go out the window, isn't it? It just gets very tricky. Yeah, very difficult.
And business plans go out the window, and so do people's goals.
Yeah.
I want to be doing X. Okay, your horse isn't ready, or that's not reality. And that's a complicated thing. And I think it's an important thing as horse owners to be as open and as kind of flexible as you possibly can be when it comes to working with professionals, And
I sort of do wonder whether this will split paths a little bit with equestrians, because it's getting more and more expensive to own horses. And so the right to whatever feels really strong for some people. Like, I have a right to ride, like I've work all week for this. I sacrifice lots of other things for this. And I think you'll either get people who are like, I want to do the right thing, but I'm not willing to not do that, so I'm just not going to have horses, which I think actually is fine and admirable. If you know that about yourself, then I think that's okay. Or you'll have people who'll be like, actually, it's not about the riding, it's about this, and it's about this, and this, and this, and, you know, go on.
And you know what? The reality is, if you truly let your horse lead you, you will have the best, most wonderful experiences. Because
Go on.
I feel like that I do that. And there are certain horses who have real compromise in their body, like Blondie, for example, who I am very led by. But it means we do less. Of course, I'm not show jumping her. I'm not going out. But like Zora, who's very capable, very able, very strong. Her body is really good. We have amazing experiences. It's still led by her. I'm not there shoving her around, making her do things. I'm still asking her and giving her opportunity and letting her rest and having appropriate time. And if her saddle doesn't fit, I don't ride her. I don't make things happen. I don't think I have any right to ride Zora.
Yeah.
But because I advocate for her, I am given the opportunity and the privilege to do so.
It's so cute. You just reminded me, I went to a barbecue last weekend with people from the yard. And someone's husband was like, oh, I think I saw you on the common the other day. But I was like really confused because you were like on the floor with like a long line, but there was no tack. And I was like, and he said he called his wife and was like, there's someone on the common, da da da. And she was like, oh yeah, that'll be Rhi. She's like, she does that. And I was like, I love that this is part of my personal brand. And I was like, yeah, me and my partner do that. We'll take him for a walk sometimes. I was like, he loves it. It's great.
We don't have a dog. We just have a Harley.
Exactly. Oh, so hilarious. I can like totally imagine a future where I have like a pram and a lunge line and Harley.
Oh, I just love it.
So
I love
cute.
that so much.
Oh my God. Also, on a side note, Ari, the competing, I have a confession and also want to validate something for you. So, up until about, I want to say 6 months ago, I don't want to say it. Up until about 6 months ago, I pulled Harley's mane. And it's because, wait. I tried, he's an Irish draft, right? Big, thick mane. I tried growing it long and plaiting it with what I had, let the horse's mane lead you. Then I tried cutting it and it just looked like awful. And I was like, I kind of went back and forth. I'd be like, try and cut it, and then I'd end up pulling again. And then I'd try and do something else, and I'd end up pulling it again. About 6 months ago, I got one of those, they're like rakes, like a back combing rake. Do you know what I mean? A thinning rake. And you had said for ages, you're like, use a thinning rake. And I was like, everybody says that it makes your plaits look horrible because everything sticks out. Anyway, I was like, I really don't want to pull anymore. I really, really don't want to do it. It makes me feel awful. Every time I do it, I feel like a terrible person. I don't feel good about this. So anyway, I was like, I'm just going to try this back combing thing. So you basically, with the back combing rake, you take the longest hairs underneath, as if you were pulling, you push the rake to the top, and then you kind of scissor it down so like it cuts underneath. I plaited Harley yesterday, having backcombed and trimmed a while ago, and I didn't even use gel or water because I was in a rush, and I got compliments from like 4 people on my plaits. And if that doesn't tell you that it literally has absolutely no effect on your plaits looking bad, I don't know what does. So I was wrong, and I will not be pulling ever again because I can backcomb. Go on.
How many times am I going to suggest something? And it takes you, and this is absolutely the rule of you get to everything in your own time.
Yeah,
Don't
truly.
Because
Truly.
I may or may not have mentioned something about a few things that have gone on with Harley over the years. And here we are. Here we are. Well, I'm pleased that I'm not going to make you eat humble pie, but at the same time, I'm so glad because there was like pulling manes is unethical.
Yeah, it's that heartbeat study would sit in my head a lot, and yeah, as in, if you don't know what we're talking about, there was a study where their heart rates were studied while they were having their manes pulled, and even if they looked really chilled and calm and sleepy and whatever, their heart rates were spiking because you're pulling hair out. So, not ideal.
Yeah. No, and even if they were looking like they were shut down, I think. We unfortunately can't call it a study because it annoyingly never got published. But it was basically somebody went through the process of doing a study and then never did. But it did get cited in articles and stuff. So it did happen. But unfortunately, yeah, it's a shame though, because I think it's really important because so many people do still pull manes.
Do you know
But
what the
yeah,
last straw though for me was? Is I would stand on a stool and tie Harley up like in the barn or whatever, and he would do this thing where he would just turn his head round and look at me, and then if I kept doing it and like turned his head back, he would just push his head, turn his head, and then just push me, just like really gently, just nudge me off the stool, and be like, "No, please, like no." And like if you really just said, "No, I want you to stand," he would eventually be like, "Okay." But it's just these little tiny movements, and I was like halfway through one day, and I was like, "I can't do this. I can't do this." Bless him. So yeah, it works. Backcomb and raking, even for an Irish draft mane.
I've got a video on my YouTube. It's about 20 years old. You can go and
Yeah,
watch that.
it's good.
I saw someone recently, actually. I can't remember who it was, and they said that they learnt how to plait from my Top Tips Tuesday, Top Tips Friday. Oh my God, I've forgotten the name of my own series. Top Tips Friday. They learnt to plait from my Top Tips Friday. They were like, yeah, years and years and years ago, you taught me how to plait. And I think, God, I should bring that back.
You should. I learned how to long line properly from your long lining video.
Well,
Yeah,
that tiny
that was
little
coming
cob.
out a long time ago. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I can't remember their name. They have this tiny little black and white cob. It's called Long Lining 101. It's got a lot of
That's
views on
great.
YouTube, actually. It's a good video.
Great SEO. Yeah, it is.
I stand by that.
You should bring it back. Other things happening in the equestrian ether lately. I don't know if this. I feel like this is fine to say because she said it publicly. I really like Abby Lyle. Like I follow her and she shares these great stories and things. Oh, she has been on fire lately. So first of all, if you don't know her, she's an Irish Olympian. She went to obviously that's what an Olympian is. She went to the Olympics. She's a dressage rider. She has these wonderful horses. Miri's cracking up. Wonderful horses that she rides. And she was supposed to go to WEG, which is the World Equestrian Games. And she withdrew and she kind of like released a statement just being like, everything's fine, but I'm not going. And then on her stories a couple of weeks later, she kind of elaborated, and I can't remember word for word what she said, but she talked about, and again, don't quote me on this exactly, but she talked about kind of loving her horses and not enjoying the moment about being at the top of the sport. And she didn't go into loads of detail, but what she has done over the last few weeks is she started jumping again. She's got a horse that she can like do some jump training on, and she's like, I just want to enjoy my horses and enjoy the experience. And then last week on her stories, obviously loads of people tagged her in the bridleless competition videos because she sometimes rides bridleless. And she was like, I'm going to work towards it. It's a goal of mine. She's been in touch with, I presume she's been in touch with Mia, because she said she's been in touch with the organisers, and she's like, I've got 2 out of my 3 ways to stop, and it's a goal that I'm going to try. She's going to get some help, she said, like some like lessons and stuff, and she's going to try and like work towards the next competition. So I just feel like that is so cool, and like we'd love to have her on. We're like working away in the background seeing if we can make that happen, but like I just think it's really cool to have a person at the top of the sport who's like, even at the top, not feeling the pressure to be like, I'm just going to keep doing it because this is what people expect of me. Like, ultimately, she's like, I'm a horse girl. I want to enjoy myself. I want to enjoy my horses. I would rather do some jumping and do some bitless and do some bridleless than, you know, be in this pressure cooker at the top of the sport that I don't want to be in. And I don't want to speak for her, but that, you know, it feels cool and I'm excited. This episode is proudly sponsored by Westgate Labs, the UK's leading provider of parasite testing for horses and other grazing animals. For over 26 years, Westgate Labs have been helping horse owners take a smarter approach to parasite control. Instead of treating routinely, they help you understand exactly what's going on with your horse through reliable, award-winning parasite testing and expert support. Their worm egg counts and specialist parasite tests give you a clear picture of your horse's parasite burden, helping you to make informed treatment decisions while reducing unnecessary worming and protecting the medicines we all rely on. Testing is quick and easy. Simply order your kit online, send your sample in the post, and receive clear, easy to understand results. Every customer also gets a free online account where you can keep track of your testing history, making it simple to monitor your horse's health over time. And if you're ever unsure of what your results mean, Westgate's friendly team of experts are available by phone, email, or direct message to offer practical, independent advice. Whether you own one horse or manage a busy yard, Westgate Labs makes parasite control simple, evidence-based, and responsible. Visit westgatelabs.co.uk and use the code EQLIFE10 to receive 10% off your order, excluding Equicel and subscriptions. That's EQLIFE10 for 10% off. Back to the podcast.
Yeah, I love that. And I am, very excited for the next bridleless competition. The tickets are available to purchase. So if you are interested in being a spectator, it's going to be a really cool day.
Where's it going to be? Merris Wood again?
It's at Bury Farm, which is very near me, which is so
Other side
cool.
of London.
Yeah. So really exciting. And there's going to be like a demo in the middle of the day. So it's like breaks up the dressage and the show jumping. Show jumping is going to be first, actually. Dressage is going to be later. We had a committee meeting the other day. I'm part of the committee for the bridleless comp, and it's just really cool to be part of it. And I'm so excited if someone like Abby can come, because I think I would absolutely love to have a conversation with her, because it would be so cool to understand how she is managing to change, not be having to go to the World Equestrian Games in terms of like her career, like what's enabling her to not do that. Because I think a lot of the time, once you're in that cycle, I imagine it's a financial driver, it's maybe an expectation from owners, but I think she owns RT, and so I just would love to hear. I'd love to hear that, because I think the top of the sport has a magnifying glass on it, and it has that because we all aspire. That's what everybody's like, maybe not everybody, but I guess it's something to kind of work towards, maybe. Like that's what you can do. And so it would be so cool to understand, what it actually feels like to be there. And hopefully she could speak candidly about that. I don't know, but yeah, just cool. And yeah, she's quite the ambassador for all good things in the equestrian world, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of like top of the sport, I did see something. It wasn't horsey, but it was incredible, and I have thought about it every time I've been in the gym. I've had like little flashbacks. So my partner and I really love the athletics, and if you're not familiar, in England and in Britain, the United Kingdom, whatever, the athletic scene is like really strong. Like it comes up through with schools and stuff. And so every year there's something called the Diamond League London meet in London, obviously. And you go, and it's in a stadium. I think it's the West Ham Stadium. It's the one where the Olympics were. And you can see like the sprinting, you can watch javelin, you can watch the high jump, you can watch the pole vault. Like it all happens in the same space. And this time there's this guy called Josh Kerr who broke the world record for the fastest mile ever. And when they have runners who are doing like a long-ish distance, there are these LED lights that run alongside the track, and the lights represent different things. So like sometimes there'll be a light for a pace that a runner's trying to hit and whatever else, right? He had lights for the world record pace. And there's 60,000 people in this stadium. And the moment that his feet started to overtake the LED lights for the world record pace, the sound in that stadium, it was unbelievable. Like, I think I shared a video on my socials. It was just the most inspiring thing ever. And he broke it by like 2 seconds, which is loads in this, upper echelon of the sport. It was just amazing. And he's dedicated like, I think they said like the last year of his life towards this specific event. And you're just like, these people are so inspiring. It's just so cool.
Wowzers. Because, so how fast did he run?
He did it in 3 minutes, 42 seconds, 66
Now, I don't know if you remember, but we have been in the lifetime, I think, of when somebody broke the 4-minute mile. That was like a big thing for a long time, that people were like, yeah, running a 4-minute mile. And if you've ever been for a run, that is incredibly fast. Like, you're belegging it. You're not just like running for the bus, you are running from a lion, like legging it. And I just think it's such an amazing thing. Like George and I have just been watching the CrossFit Games
Yeah, and the
this week.
Commonwealth Games is on right now too, which it's just lots of sport everywhere and it's wonderful.
Yeah, and the CrossFit Games is bonkers, right? The CrossFit Games is like the fittest on earth, okay? That's
Yeah,
what
it's
it's,
wild.
and it is pretty bonkers, the kind of skills that they have to get them to have. And this lady, Amy Kringle, she won the CrossFit Games, right? And when I say this woman is like, I have never, like, is like another league of human being, right? It does make me really think about like how much we can push ourselves as people. And there are certain people that are built for that, right? She will be, you know, yes, a lot of it.
Optimized.
Say again.
She's like optimized as a
Right,
human.
literally, like her legs are a good length, her arms, her hands are her heart, her lungs, all of these different things. Like she will have been, there will be a certain amount of nature to this, right? As in, she was born in a good physical. She's not like super short or got weird length legs or whatever it might be. But that the nurture side of things, like this guy Josh Kerr running, like he was working towards this in such a like scientific way. And I just, this is fascinating to me that we can like be really amazing versions of ourselves. And I I don't know, maybe in another life I will get the opportunity to be one of those people, you know, that gets to like optimize and be like the best at something. But I think even just seeing it and watching it and being like invested in it and realizing like, God, this is, the human body is so capable. And like I've gone through this shitty burnout thing and my anxiety gets really bad and all this crap that I always talk about. And there's part of me, and I say it like that because I don't like love that part of me that's ended up in that place, and I wonder what the learning is for me in that. But then there's also this part of me that is like, I can own a different story to that,
Yeah.
because that was one of the things that the amazing trainers at the horsemanship masterclass said to me. They were like, you know, you tell this story a lot about how you are an anxious person or whatever, and in that moment it's the only thing, because it's my experience. Like I was viscerally experiencing that at that moment, so it feels like my only option is to talk about it. And then I see these amazing people, these amazing athletes, and they're like, their story is really different, you know. And
Yeah.
one of the things that Amy Kringle spoke about, and I think this was super interesting, like she is the fittest woman in the world deemed by the CrossFit Games, right? By that standard. And it's very diverse, you know, they swim, they run, they ride a bike, they lift heavy weights, they can do these mental gymnastics movements, you know. It's completely like, it's really diverse CrossFit. If you've never seen it, it's called CrossFit. So you're like fit and you cross at the same time. No, I'm joking. But my point being is, one of the things that she says a lot in interviews is that she didn't really believe that she was good enough, but she had lots of people around her that did believe that she was good enough. And I don't know, she's just a very humble example of absolutely incredible physical and mental strength. And I don't know, I just would like to live my life a bit more like Amy Kringle and be a bit more, I don't know. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Tougher, stronger, more resilient.
I don't know
I
if it's
don't know.
tougher. I think it's just being in the present. Like you, just this morning we were watching Adam Ramsey Peaty, I think is his name now, who was Adam Peaty previously, prior to his marriage, obviously. And he was at one point like absolutely unbeatable, stepped away from the sport because of his mental health, is now back in the sport for swimming, sorry. And he's like coming third and stuff. And he's talking about, you know, that's hard and da da da. And I think, you know, it's not the same. I don't know what his story is compared to yours, but it's being in this present moment and being like, okay, that was a moment I went through. I'm rebuilding right now. Like, this is where I am. I have a question for you, though. First of all, if you went to the Olympics, would you get the 6 rings tattoo? And if you got the tattoo, where would you get it? Because we've had this conversation and like, I just find the answers really interesting. Because I'm like not a tattoo person, but if I went to the Olympics, you could best believe I'm putting that tattoo somewhere where it can be seen wherever I go, I want people to absolutely know that I'm an Olympian. And that says a lot about me. I appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think if you get to the Olympics, like, that is really, really hard. Like, really hard. It's not just like hard. It's like, as somebody who has been in professional sport for however long I've been, I am so far away from being an Olympian, and yet, I'm quite good, fairly
Yeah.
good, but there's such a huge gap. I think, I haven't got any tattoos. I'm not really a tattoo person, but I do think that maybe, yeah, I think I would probably get it like here on my wrist, like next to my
Hmm.
watch. So it was kind
Yeah.
of subtle, but at the same time, it was like, yeah, hi,
Yeah.
went to the Olympics.
Mary's holding a
Yeah.
hand up. Like when you get engaged and you're like, oh my God, hi. You like show your hands. I thought the wrist too, because I was like, I'd want it connected to the sport. And I feel like if it were like dressage or something, your hand connected to the rein. I don't know, something like that. It's just a fun game.
Or in your lip,
Oh gosh.
so you could just hold your lip out,
I
like
think
they
I
do
would
like they do in prison.
I think I'd pass out if I think needles in general, but inside your lip, that is a different level. Even
Yeah.
your wrist actually, because it's the veins, it makes it more painful, doesn't it?
I think
Ugh.
if you're tough enough to get to the Olympics, you'd be tough enough to get a tattoo on the middle of your lip.
You're probably right. You're probably right. Comes down to
I
preference at
wanted
that point.
I wanted to update. I'll change the subject slightly, but I
Yeah, go
wanted to
on.
update on a few things because I think
Okay.
it's important because we've spoken about it a number of times. There is one thing, and I feel like we need to do a good thing by talking about it, but there is still a lot of equine flu around. And it's really important that we are vaccinating our horses. And this sounds really basic, right? Like that sounds like a really basic thing to say, but please, please, guys, we really do need to. So the United Kingdom is in. This is from the medicalupdateonline.com. The United Kingdom is in the grip of its most significant equine influenza outbreak in recent history. Since late March and early April 2026, laboratory confirmed cases have been reported across England, Scotland and Wales. By 8th of June 2026, a total of 95 outbreaks had been recorded in Britain for the year, of which 82 were confirmed after 20th of April alone, according to figures from the Equine Infectious Disease Surveillance Team at Cambridge Veterinary School. So it's important that we mention that this is still going on as part of the a wider conversation that we have, because if you're listening to this and your horse isn't vaccinated, you could be not just putting them at risk but other horses at risk, and it's a problem because it affects the old and the young, and so you could end up really doing a lot of damage. It can be fatal. So yes, I just wanted to mention that was still going on. We should have done a news update
You
thing.
have reminded me, I have a second bum bum bum.
Yeah.
You might remember, listeners, last year that Red Wings was trying to get the UK government, this is really only relevant for the UK crew, the UK government to consult on fireworks because of the impact on horses and animals.
Well
The
done.
UK government has agreed to have a 4-week consultation period with the public on this. Now, I don't know, whatever. Quite often these things go under the radar and then they don't get that much data and they're like, oh, it's obviously not that important to people. So you can find this if you search, well, if you go on the Red Wings Instagram and you
If
go
you
in there,
go in, if you go in our show notes,
we'll add it there if you know how to get to the show notes. If you don't, or you don't have time or whatever, if you go on the Red Wings Instagram and you go in their links, you'll see it linked there as well. Or if you Google government consultation, fireworks and pyrotechnics, PYRO technics in the UK, you should be able to find it. And you just have to answer a bunch of questions. It will take a few minutes, so like give yourself time and probably do it on a laptop. I tried to do it on my phone and it was hard. But we have a 4-week consultation period and I think we're getting too close to
it's
the end.
longer than that.
Oh, is it?
If you
My
can,
bad.
respond to the consultation by 11:59 p.m. on the 7th of October 2026.
Oh,
After the consultation has closed, the government will analyse the feedback. It will then publish a summary of the responses and next steps. It's because I had an email from them because I signed the petition.
oh, amazing. Okay, there you go. It must have been a 3 month, not a 4 month, not whatever I said,
Yeah.
4 weeks. So there you go. You can do that as well. That is also a good thing to be aware of.
And it's cool because it's seeking views on proposals to restrict the availability of noisier fireworks to the general public, with louder products only available to professional users, which I think is great. So it means like the little baby ones will be available to the public, but the proper ones will be available to public displays. Add products deemed to be carrying unacceptable risks to the existing list of banned pyrotechnic products. So thinking about putting some of the slightly wackier ones in jail. Review the regulations for fireworks and pyrotechnic products currently classified as lower risk to better reflect the different levels of risk they pose. So it's interesting because although it is about horses, it is actually more so now about regulating pyrotechnics. So even if you're not a horse person, and you could maybe send this to people who aren't horse people, because this could be about dogs, cats, pets, old people, young people, whomever may be affected, people with sensory issues. People can get really triggered by this kind of thing. So it's important to. It's not just your horse friends that you could send this to. You can send it to your grandma. You can send it to your dad. You can send it to your mum. You can send it to your cousin. Whoever it. That's very family related. Send it to your mate. Send it to your teacher at school. Talk about it at school. Whatever it might be. We can really do some good here if we all talk about it. Share it on your social media. You never know who's going to see it.
Yeah, love it.
I received an interesting email this week, and I thought it would be interesting to answer it on the pod because, I want to give it enough space, essentially, to answer it properly. But I thought it was an interesting conversation because it kind of talks a bit about... I'm just going to find it. Hello, Miri. I hope you don't mind me getting in touch. My name is... and I have aspirations to potentially become an equine bodywork and behaviour coach in Scotland. I have a degree in applied science and in applied animal science and have previously worked in both equine and small animal veterinary hospitals. I'm now trying to gain as much practical experience as I can by working with a wide variety of horses while continuing to develop my knowledge. I followed your work for some time on all your platforms, including your Patreon, and really admire your approach to horsemanship and equine welfare. I wondered if you'd be willing to share any advice for someone hoping to build a career in this field. If you were starting again, what would you focus on? Are there any books, courses, or experiences that you feel made the biggest differences for you? I've got a lot to learn, but I'm not in a rush, and I feel so deeply passionate on the topic, and I want to make sure I do well with this. Similar to yourself, I struggle with anxiety, and I know the industry is controversial, so I want to be confident in my knowledge before starting anything professional. I completely understand how busy you must be, so I don't expect a long reply. Even a few pointers or recommendations would be incredibly appreciated. So, lovely, wonderful, and I think very cool for somebody to reach out and ask a question like this, and I think probably took a bit of bravery to maybe step out of what she has been doing into what they do want to be doing. And there was one question that really came up, like really stuck out for me, and that was, if you were starting again, what would you focus on? And yeah, if I was starting again, what would I focus on? And I think for me, it would be to continue to have a trade, to have, like, one of the things that I struggled with when I was in my 20s, when I was building what I do now, was that I kept coming back to the fact that I didn't have like a qualification as such to help me help the horses. So I had a coaching qualification. I got my coaching qualification when I was quite young. I think I started doing that when I was 21 maybe. But yeah, maybe 20. I did my UKCC level 2, so I became a qualified coach, but it didn't enable me to kind of work with horses. And I don't know really if there are, and maybe people can correct me on this, and I don't know if I actually have a solid answer for this person, which I think is an interesting thing, right? Because so much of what I have done is just learn from the horses that I have experienced through my life. But one of the things that I did do was I got that coaching qualification early on, and I think one of the things that I maybe would do differently is potentially earlier on I would have tried to have had a a qualification or a course or a trade, like I said, that enabled me to more specifically target what I wanted to do. And I do think that this is a bit the problem. You can go and become like a Pirelli certified coach,
Mm.
but I think you have to pay quite a lot of money to do that. And I do think that comes, it's very specific, like it's really fairly straightforward. And I don't know really if there are any kind of qualifications that I could have done at that point in my career that would have brought me to a different position. And I think this comes back to the most important thing when it comes to horses is that you are perpetually learning. And would I change any of what I've done? Probably not, because actually all of what I've done has enabled me to be where I am today. And would I have done anything different? I don't think I would have. Because if I had done things differently, I wouldn't have met the horses that I've met. I wouldn't have had the experiences that I've had, and I wouldn't have learnt the things that I'd learned. And, you know, sometimes they say, oh, you learn things the hard way. I do believe that. Like, I started out in yards that I wouldn't align with now. And I think that was part of my journey. You know, that was what I had to do. And I wonder if my advice to this person would be to just keep going and keep doing these different things that they're doing already. I don't know. Is that completely wishy-washy? What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I do think that everything is feedback, and, you know, I'm only coming at it from a corporate career, but I think when people ask me, oh, I don't know what to go into, or I don't know how to niche down from, let's say they're in broad marketing, I keep coming back to, like, what do people come to you for? When they're on a project, or when you're, you know, when everyone's in, when people are in a pinch, or you get, you know, asked about, what are you being asked for? Because that's your thing. That might be your magic thing. And then I think on the horsey side, like, we've never been, as an industry, but also wider, there's never been a better time or an easier time to go and do something alone, run your own business, try something out. Social media gives you a huge platform these days, things like that. So I do think that established qualifications can set you apart from people who just, like, say that they do stuff. And I'm not saying that that's not a way you can do it. It is, but it might, especially if it's real, if it's actually a real trade, like you've got BHS, you've got UKCC, like you said, there's lots of other places you can get qualifications, but I think that might be able to set you apart as well. But I do think, like, everything you do is information. Like, what are people asking you for when you're on yards? What are you drawn to? What are you drawn from? All of that stuff is important.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that came up for me that I was kind of reminded of was I spent a long time learning from one person, and that was Claire Gallimore, who had spent a long time learning from Tristan. And I really got a foundation of knowledge in that way. And that wasn't because I went on a course. That wasn't because I went and spent time with that person. And that's something that I feel has held me back a lot, is the fact that I have never gone, and I see people doing it all the time, and, like, based myself with a master. I haven't done that. I've done it, like, Claire has been the most amazing mentor to me and taught me so much about the way that I do things with the horses now, and I still have training with her to this day. But I never went and, like, spent 6 months with her.
Yeah.
You know, I never went and spent a year with her. And I wonder if that's something that I would recommend to people is, you know, find somebody who you are like, oh my goodness me, they are the absolute gold standard, and go and offer yourself to be part of what they do. And that's complicated in itself, because sometimes I have people that ask me if they can come and be mentored by me, and I almost do think you should pay for it. You should pay to go and be able to be mentored by somebody, because in my experience, like, I had an apprentice last year, and obviously she worked on the yard and I paid her, but it was a lot of work. You know, it was a lot of work to make sure that I spent the time to teach her things, not just let her be there, you know, like, for work. Like, I didn't want her to just work for free.
Yeah.
I don't mean that. but if you are going to go and spend time and absorb and be able to just sit and listen and be taught by, yeah, I do feel like that maybe is something worth investing in. And I have heard of this, that people are paying professionals to go and be mentored by them and shadow them. You know, it's complicated though, because I feel like you're
It
going to
is.
complicate it.
Well, yeah, no, I think it is complicated because I guess the flip side of that is horses in particular. It's a very physical job. It's very demanding. It's often quite low wages anyway. You know, you're often on site. If you're living on site, you might be not even in a house. You might be in a static caravan, for example, all weathers. Like, it's hard. And like, I think the industry tries to account for the fact that that person's training by having an apprenticeship wage. And so it's a tricky thing. And I hear you on the, you know, if you're learning, you should pay for that learning. But then at the same time, if they're working on the yard, you're getting something back. And equally, if you say you can only learn by paying, you're cutting off a huge amount of people who'd never be able to afford that. And horses has always been an industry that anyone can get into. It's tricky. It's a difficult one, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what I said maybe is a bit not like accurate enough, but I mean more in the sense of if you're going to go, like, I actually don't really think that people should allow people to come and work for free in return for shadowing them.
Oh, agreed.
You know, because I think that's what we all did at riding schools when we were kids, right? And it
Yeah.
was like, I never forget that, like, her name's Millie Stennett, I think, on TikTok. She did a funny video and she was like, what it's like at the riding school. Like, you're like, oh, I'll work a 14-hour day in return for one lesson once a month. And I remember it when I was a kid, but I was just desperate to be there. Like, I used to get there. I used to turn up at like 7:30 when the staff started mucking out, and I would be there helping with the staff side of things. Like, all the other helpers turned up at like 9:30, and I was there at 7 a.m. with the staff, and it meant then that I did get to ride in the staff lesson every day. And
Oh, I
that
didn't
was
get
like,
that, but
yeah, like I really work. Like, my mum, my parents, they deserve some sort of gold medal for what they offered me as a kid, because they enabled that. I said I really want to be there really early when the staff are doing the mucking out, so then I can be like one of the staff for free, completely for free, from when I was like 12 years old. And so then
yeah.
I rode in the staff lesson and I kind of felt part of the team, and I was very grown up before I was grown up. And I think it, like, would I do that again? I probably would have. And I think if Tristan turned around and offered me to go and hang out on his yard and work for him in return for being there, I think I still would do that. Even though I don't actually recommend it, I think I still would.
I do think that what I feel like with horse people, and this is just a hunch as opposed to practical experience because I don't work in horses, but I feel like what you'd get from a 2-day workshop with someone versus all of those little in-between moments in someone's routine, down to the way that, like, this is so dumb, right? But like, head collars are stored, what happens to a horse immediately after a lesson, how are boots put on, like, it's all of these little things that actually make someone good or great and makes that horse's experience or confidence good or great. It's actually not kind of a classroom session on here are groundwork patterns. And so I think you only get those kind of insights. I mean, I can't think of any specific ones, but I know I've heard interviews where people pick up these little things
Yeah.
like that, and that's what makes, and that you can only get from genuinely working on a yard.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think about the way that we keep horses here and what really truly creates healing. You know, we've just recently helped a pony that had been on box rest for a whole year. This pony had, you know, and she was not destined for great places. And she's out living in the field right now. She's out overnight. She's, you know, still a bit restricted because things have been a bit hard for her long term, but it's all going in the right direction. And I think, you know, what were all the small things that we did for her? Like, I wouldn't be able to write it down. I wouldn't, because, you know, sometimes it's, oh, we did some light therapy and then we did this and then we did that. And, oh, actually, it was the way that we changed her diet. And, oh, it was the way that we noticed that when this was happening. So then we got the vet at that point. You know, I can't write it down. I can't give it to you in a package. Like, I try with my patron to share as much as I can with everybody about all of the little things that we do, and I try and show as many different horses as I possibly can. But I think you're right. You know, it's those little things. And maybe that's the piece of advice then for this person, is to go and spend some time in some different places and go and do a work experience. I don't think I think work experience is just the most valuable thing. I always encourage people to go for work experience. I loved work experience when I was a kid. You know, I
Agreed.
went with a vet, and actually it was pretty wild. But I went with a vet, and maybe it would be more regulated now, and you wouldn't be able to do the things that we did. But
Well, I was going to say, if like, I know this isn't necessarily what you're saying in the question, but if, you know, the British Grooms Association has really good advice about regulation, what should be allowed, what shouldn't be allowed, red flags, if you're being asked to work full time but self employed, like that's a red flag, stuff like that. So have a look at their advice, because even if you're not doing a groom's job, it's the same industry. So just that's a good place to be as well, I think.
100%. Yeah, really interesting. Lovely.
Well, that was really fun. I feel like we always touch on a number of really interesting topics. And even then, as you were talking about packaging up things for horses, I was immediately reminded of Rochelle's interview where she says when she sends horses on, she's like, this is what they're eating, this is when they go in the field, this is what happens when da 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 da. All this stuff. It's very interesting, all these little conversations. Yeah. Hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation between Miri and I. We'll be back next week and the weeks thereafter with guests and fun and all sorts of joy. So stay tuned. Have a wonderful rest of your day with your ponies, if you are having time with ponies. If not, then enjoy whatever else you're doing. I'm rambling now. We'll see you next week.
I have a favour to ask. This is my roundup.
Yeah?
If you could share the podcast, not necessarily this specific episode, but if you could just do us a solid and share your favourite episode with 5 horse people, maybe your yard group, we'd really appreciate it. We'd like the podcast to reach a wider network of people, and we hope that by sharing it, you can share it on Instagram, or you could just share it by literally sending somebody a link that you really thought was interesting. We would really appreciate that. So yeah, thank you for listening, guys, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye for now.